Hi there. Now I will briefly tell you about the thriller 2015, Who Is There? The film originates in a quiet suburb of Los Angeles, where the successful architect Ivo Heber lives with his loving wife Karen and two spinograzami. Karen is professionally engaged in sculpture as part of business matters. She is assisted by manager Luis, who is preparing her new work for the exhibition. A little later, his wife and children are going to go to the beach for the whole weekend, but Evan is forced to stay at home in the company of the dog Monkey to finish an urgent project. In the evening, Evan, in a comfortable environment, listening to the hits of the 80s, works at the computer, but at some point he has a creative plug. To get inspiration again, the man decides to smoke, but his plans for this plan are ruined by an unexpected doorbell. Who would have thought that on the threshold Evan would see two soaked-through young girls Bella Genesis? The ladies got lost in search of a house of a certain Gregory with a plaintive look asks Evan to use his internet because their only smartphone drowned in the rain. Evan kindly lets the girls into the house, gives them a towel and an iPad, and then calls an Uber for them, which will arrive in this fashionable backwater in 45 minutes. The owner of the house carefully prepares tea for the ladies, at their request, throws wet clothes into the dryer. Returning to the living room, Evan sees that the girls have reached his old DJ console and tells them that during his turbulent youth he was a DJ and even toured the country. Genesis notices a photo of Karen and makes her beauty a correspondence compliment, while Evan adds that his wife is also damn talented at showing the girl in the wife's catalog. The ladies begin to divert conversations into the channel of lust and debauchery, to which he reacts very restrainedly saying that in 14 years of marriage he has never cheated on his wife. Genesis assures the man that a person is polygamous by nature, that being with one partner all his life means going against his essence. While Evan is trying to digest what he has heard, Bella enters the conversation, not at all covertly hinting to him about a threesome, finally stupefying the man with this. The crazy architect is interested in who they are in general in life, and it turns out that nymphomania is not the only kind of their activity. The girls introduce themselves as flight attendants and say that between flights, staying for a day in a new city, they come off to the fullest. And this implies sex during which they will gladly fulfill any perverted desires of a man. Realizing that this is another hint in his garden, Evan breaks into a smile like a madman, not knowing what to say. Fortunately, the man had only 5 minutes left to hold out until the taxi arrived. When Genesis goes to the bathroom, Evan, in order to dilute the awkward silence, cuts the music and even shows Belle a couple of DJ techniques. Pulling the architect to dance, Belle tries to kiss him, but Evan receives a message that the taxi is already at home. After taking their clothes from the washing machine, Evan carries them to the girls who apparently are not going to leave the bathroom. He has no choice but to enter there. Inside, Evan is met by two completely naked girls and now, without any hints, they want him in full. The poor man resisted with all his might but was forced to surrender before the treacherous seizure of his genitals all night to do anything with them. Waking up in the morning, Evan is relieved to think that having received what he wanted, the seductresses safely left, but it was not there. A man finds them in the kitchen, which they turned into a real pigsty by frying pancakes for breakfast. Evan wants to get an unwanted couple out of the house as soon as possible and is ready to take them anywhere, but in response he receives only mockery. Suddenly, Karen calls Evan and in order not to get burned, the man runs out into the yard. The unfaithful husband lies to his wife that he is working hard on the project and wants to finish it as soon as possible, and Karen just has to wish him good luck. After that, Evan runs into the house and with a shout forces the impudent girls to get dressed, but leaving them without attention for literally a minute, he notices in horror how they paint an exhibition exhibit with pissions. This is clearly too much and Evan decides to call the police, but Genesis warns the man about the consequences of such a decision. Evan is facing a criminal case of overgrowing a minor because he was 16 years old. The dumbfounded architect does not want to dry the crackers, so he tries to buy them off, but the girls indignantly answer that, in fact, they are not representatives of the oldest profession. An unexpected doorbell. That's who Evan was definitely missing right now, is Vivian, a good friend of his wife who came to do a therapeutic massage on his sore shoulder. The man says that his shoulder has miraculously regenerated in order to get her out as soon as possible, when suddenly Genesis comes out of the house and hugs Evan. The shocked masseuse shouts that cheating on her wife is disgusting and immediately removes everything away. After that, the completely irritated Evan is already trying to force them out of the house, but the girls only mockingly provoke him that they will tell everyone what a pedophile he is. In a fit of rage, Evan grabs Genesis by the throat, but washes up in time and decides to call the police anyway, and whatever happens there. However, Genesis interrupts the call and, to his surprise, asks them to take them. Having thrown out the girls somewhere in the city, Evan returns home and brings the dwelling to its original state, destroying the evidence of his stormy night. In the evening, the architect is working on the project as if nothing had happened, but he hears some noise and goes to check what's the matter. On the floor in the living room, Evan finds a broken family photo and picking it up, Genesis jumps out from behind and knocks the man out with a blow to the head. Some time later, Evan wakes up and finds himself tied to a cot with his hands and feet while Genesis silently puts on a marathon. Belle comes into the room dressed in his daughter's school uniform and calls him his daddy. After that, she subjects the architect to inhuman tortures, forcing the poor guy to look under her skirt. Unexpectedly, Karen calls him and anticipates one show at a time. The girls pull off the man's pants, intending to show his wife how he is working on the project. Evan, horrified, begs them not to do this, and Genesis says that in this case he should engage in lewdness with Belle. The man has no other choice but to do it. Having fixed the camera in the right position, Genesis leaves for a snack, leaving them alone with each other, but the suffering of the man does not last long. Having loosened the bed in full, Evan manages to free his left hand to beat the lustful rider off himself. Freed and hiding his farm, the man runs out into the corridor and seeing Genesis there, rushes at her in a rage. However, the girl counterattacks the owner of the house with a fork into his injured shoulder and Evan loses touch with reality from the painful shock. Evan wakes up tied to a chair and the girls in the manner of a quiz show start asking him unpleasant questions, without answering which his ears will have a hard time. They offer the man to decide for himself how to deal with him as a malicious pedophile. Send them to prison, castrate them, or kill them on the spot. Fortunately, Lewis saves the man from such a difficult choice, who came to pick up a new sculpture of Karen at the exhibition. Genesis lets him into the house and introduces herself as Evan's niece, but as soon as Lewis saw the ruined exhibit, he immediately realized that these Proshmandovki had done it. The manager threatens them to call the police, but is distracted by the noise from the house. ABL deftly snatches the inhaler from him. In the house, Lewis finds Evan tied up and, trying to free him, hears the girls destroying works of art. In an attempt to prevent them, Lewis has an asthma attack and tripping over a piece of sculpture, the guy hits his head on its concrete foundations, dying on the spot. However, such a ridiculous death amuses the girls even more, while he screams in horror at them to call the medics. Then the girls put their necks on Louis Papum's body in a barbaric way, turning him into a statue, after which they adjust the correspondence as if Evan killed him jealous of his wife. Having finished with Lewis, the maniacs return to Evan to condemn him what a scoundrel he is, how he betrayed his wife and children with his disgusting behavior. So do good to people after that, Evan thought. The outraged architect shouts to the girls that he loves his family and, in fact, they raped him in the cruelest way, and he just wanted to help them in a human way. Anyway, at dawn the girls are going to execute him and goes to dig a hole for him. A little later they return and Evan finds out that the Genesis Whites were preparing for this visit and had been spying on him and his family for a long time. After that, the lady decides to smash the house into trash and in the process finds a loaded gun. Genesis comes up with a great idea to free Evan and play hide-and-seek with him for survival. If the girls do not find him before dawn, they will simply leave his home and realizing that this is no chance, Evan agrees. First of all, the man goes to the kitchen and arms himself with a table knife, and then, violating the rules of the game, runs out of the house. However, he immediately stumbles over the cart and falls to the ground, losing his only weapon. Naturally, Genesis easily catches a would-be fugitive who in this situation can only call for help. At dawn, the girls plunge Evan's body into the ground by the neck and prepare to nail him with a stone slab, but it turns out that they just wanted to scare the shit out of him, which they actually managed. Now the game is coming to an end and the ladies are going to a new goal, adding that for all the time they have never met refusals, that men in their lustful essence are all the same. On top of everything else, it turns out that Bella is 18 years old and now Evan can sleep peacefully. He is not a pedophile. Finally, the girls publish his hookup with Belle for everyone to see on Facebook, and taking the monkey goes into the sunset. Evan manages to free his hand and, terrified, tries to delete it in the form of it accidentally likes him. While Evan is dying of despair in a pit, his family returns from the beach and looking at what their home has turned into, they realize that the head of the family had a roof-bearing weekend.